Sergeant Maya Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead and stared at the endless rows of supply crates in the warehouse. 3 months on Kepler 442b, and she still wasn't used to the heat. The climate control systems worked fine, but the planet's twin suns had a way of making everything feel warmer than it should. She pulled off her aviator sunglasses and set them on top of a gray metal crate. The vintage glasses had belonged to her grandfather, a pilot back on Earth. Maya kept them more for luck than function inside the base, but they made her feel at home on this strange frontier world. The joint military outpost buzzed with activity around her. Humans and Vakari worked side by side, a testament to the peace treaty signed 2 years ago. Maya still remembered the shock when humanity first encountered the Vakari. Everyone expected aliens to be small gray beings with big eyes. Nobody expected 9-foot-tall apex predators covered in obsidian scales that reflected light like oil on water. The Vakari looked like someone had crossed a panther with a dragon and added 2 extra limbs. They moved with deadly grace despite their size. Their bioluminescent markings glowed soft blue along their spines and shoulders, pulsing with their moods. When angry, the lights turned red. Maya had seen that once and never wanted to see it again. But the scariest thing about the Vakari wasn't their size or their retractable claws. It was their intelligence. They were strategic thinkers, patient hunters, and surprisingly diplomatic. The war had ended not because humanity won, but because both sides realized they had more to gain from cooperation than conflict. Maya turned back to her inventory checklist. 17 more crates to count before lunch. She sighed and picked up her datapad. A strange chittering sound made her pause. 3 small shapes moved between the crates at the far end of the warehouse. The Vakari cubs. Maya smiled despite herself. Crix, Thrax, and Venna had arrived 2 weeks ago with Commander Rolth. The cubs were part of a cultural exchange program, here to learn about humans and cooperation between species. The cubs were smaller than adults, only about 5 feet tall, but they still had all the predator features. Sharp teeth, retractable claws, and those unsettling intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. They moved like liquid shadow, playing some game that involved pouncing on imaginary prey behind the supply crates. They're hunting dust particles again, Maya muttered to herself. She'd been warned about the cubs. Vakari young were curious, fearless, and treated everything like a potential challenge. They'd already investigated the mess hall 3 times, gotten stuck in an air vent, and somehow managed to reprogram one of the cleaning drones to follow them around. The drone now made encouraging beeping sounds whenever they approached it. Maya went back to counting crates. She had work to do, and the cubs were someone else's problem. Probably Dr. Williams, the xenobiologist who studied Vakari behavior with the enthusiasm of someone who'd found her life's calling. She finished counting and moved to the next row. Time passed. The warehouse grew quiet except for the hum of air circulation fans. Then she heard it. A gasp, a strange clicking sound that the Vakari made when surprised. Maya looked up to see Crix standing on top of the crate where she'd left her sunglasses. The young Vakari held them carefully in his 3-fingered hands, turning them over with fascination. The lenses caught the light and reflected it in rainbow patterns across his dark scales. "Hey, those are mine," Maya called out, not really worried. The cubs were mischievous but not destructive. Crix ignored her. He lifted the sunglasses and carefully placed them on his snout. The frames were too small for his alien face, perched awkwardly above his nostril slits. He should have looked ridiculous. Instead, something strange happened. Crix stood up straighter. His head tilted at a different angle, more observant. He looked left, then right, scanning the warehouse with new purpose. His bioluminescent markings pulsed once, bright and focused. Thrax and Venna chittered excitedly and bounded over to their brother. They stared at him, heads tilting in that bird-like way the Vakari had when confused. Crix made a low rumbling sound, some kind of communication in the Vakari language that the translator implants couldn't quite catch. He gestured with one hand toward the mess hall section of the base. The 3 cubs moved as one, flowing across the warehouse floor with sudden purpose. They weren't playing anymore. They were investigating something, moving with coordinated precision that Maya had never seen from them before. She followed at a distance, datapad forgotten. The cubs made their way to the mess hall. Several off-duty personnel sat at tables eating lunch and chatting. The Vakari adults were having a meeting in the corner. Commander Routh, massive and imposing, discussed logistics with his second-in-command, Shy Crix, still wearing Maya's sunglasses, approached a human corporal sitting alone at a table. The corporal looked down at the cub and smiled nervously. Hello, little guy." Crix made a series of clicking sounds. The translator implant in the corporal's ear buzzed to life. "You. Yesterday. Commander Routh's food. Protein rations gone, you saw." The corporal blinked in surprise. "The missing food?" "Yeah, I was here when Commander Routh came in and found his lunch missing. He was pretty upset about it." Crix nodded once, a very human gesture. He turned to Thrax and Venna and made more clicking sounds. The three cubs split up, each approaching different people in the mess hall asking questions. Maya leaned against the doorway, watching in amazement. The cubs were conducting interviews. They were investigating the mysterious case of Commander Routh's missing lunch like tiny, scaly detectives. Dr. Sarah Williams appeared beside Maya, her eyes wide with excitement. "Are you seeing this?" the xenobiologist whispered. "I'm seeing it, but I don't believe it," Maya replied. "What changed?" "They were playing like normal cubs an hour ago." Maya thought about her sunglasses still perched on Crix's snout. "I don't know. Maybe they're just being curious." But it was more than curiosity. The cubs moved with purpose and coordination. Crix seemed to be leading the investigation, while Thrax examined the floor near the food prep area, and Venna interviewed the kitchen staff. After 10 minutes of investigation, the three cubs gathered near the automated cleaning drone that had taken a liking to them. The drone beeped happily. The cubs stared at it, their bioluminescent markings pulsing in unison. Crix walked over to Commander Routh's table. The massive adult Vakari looked down at the cub with surprise. "Small Crix, what is meaning of this behavior?" Crix pointed at the cleaning drone. He made several clicking sounds, then gestured at the food storage units, then back to the drone. Commander Routh's eyes widened. He stood and walked to the cleaning drone, opened its collection compartment, and pulled out several packages of protein rations. They were compressed and partially processed, but recognizable. The mess hall went silent. The drone, Commander Routh said slowly, was programmed to clean. It saw the food on the table, identified it as waste material, collected it for processing. The cubs chittered with satisfaction. Crix adjusted the sunglasses on his snout with one careful claw. Maya felt a laugh building in her chest. The predator cubs had just solved their first case, and they'd done it while wearing her grandfather's aviator sunglasses. Dr. Williams was already making notes on her data pad, muttering about behavioral frameworks and tool-mediated learning. Maya just smiled. She had a feeling things were about to get very interesting on this base. Commander Routh looked at the cubs with something like pride in his alien features. Then he looked at Maya and the sunglasses. "Sergeant Chen, what have you done to the cubs?" Maya held up her hands. "I just left my sunglasses on a crate, sir." The rest was all them. The commander rumbled, a sound that might have been a laugh. "They look different. They move different. More focused. They look like tiny detectives," one of the human soldiers said, and several people laughed. Crix stood straighter at the compliment, the sunglasses glinting in the overhead lights. He looked absolutely ridiculous and somehow completely serious at the same time. Maya knew she should ask for her sunglasses back. They were a family heirloom after all, but watching the cubs move with such confidence and purpose, she couldn't bring herself to take them away. "Let them keep the glasses for now," she said. "Let's see what happens." What happened would surprise everyone on the base. News spread through the base faster than a computer virus. By dinner time, everyone knew about the detective cubs and their first solved case. Human soldiers started calling them the Sunglasses Squad. The Vakari adults found the whole thing deeply confusing but mildly amusing. The cubs took their new role very seriously. For the next 3 days, Crix, Thrax, and Venna patrolled the base like they owned it. They took turns wearing Maya's aviator sunglasses, which had become their official badge of office. Whoever wore the glasses was the lead detective for that shift. The cubs developed a whole system. Crix wore the glasses during morning patrol. Thrax took the afternoon shift. Venna got the evening. They moved through the corridors with purpose, stopping to examine things, sniffing at doors, listening to conversations. Base personnel started bringing them cases. Detective Crix, a young private, said on the third day, crouching down to the cubs' level, "My lucky pen went missing. Can you find it? Crix adjusted the sunglasses and made clicking sounds. His translator implant rendered it as, "When did you last see Pen? What does it look like? Who had access to your quarters?" The private answered all the questions seriously. Crix investigated. 20 minutes later, he found the pen inside the private's boot, where it had apparently fallen and been forgotten. The private left a package of dried meat as payment, which the cubs divided equally. More cases followed. A corporal needed help finding out who kept leaving the bathroom door open. The cubs discovered it was the automated maintenance bot with a faulty door sensor. They fixed it by propping a waste bin in its path until a technician could properly repair it. A scientist wanted to know what was making strange noises in the lab at night. The cubs staked out the location for an entire evening and discovered a family of small native creatures living in the ventilation system. They were harmless, just noisy. Dr. Williams was thrilled and immediately started a study on the local wildlife. Someone left the main airlock unsealed overnight, which could have been dangerous. The cubs reviewed security footage and found the culprit, a tired night shift worker who forgot to check the seal properly. They reported it to security without making a big deal, and the worker received a reminder about safety protocols. The cubs loved every minute of it. Maya watched them work and felt a strange mixture of pride and concern. The sunglasses had changed them somehow. Not their nature, but their focus. They were still playful Vakari cubs, still wrestled with each other and chased things around. But when they put on those glasses, something shifted. They became investigators. Dr. Williams couldn't stop talking about it. "It's fascinating," she said, catching Maya in the corridor one afternoon. "The glasses are providing a behavioral framework. They're tool-mediated confidence builders. The cubs always had these problem-solving instincts, but the glasses give them a role to inhabit, a purpose that focuses their natural abilities." "You're saying my grandfather's sunglasses turned them into detectives?" Maya asked, not sure whether to laugh or be concerned. "Not exactly. The cubs are predators by nature, hunters. They naturally observe, track patterns, coordinate as a pack. They were doing all of this already, just without direction. The sunglasses gave them a framework to channel those instincts into something constructive." Maya considered this. "So they're not different. They're just focused?" "Exactly. It's brilliant, really. Cross-species cultural exchange at its finest." Maya tried to get her sunglasses back once. She approached Crix during an off-duty moment when he wasn't wearing them. "Hey, buddy," she said gently. "Those are actually my sunglasses. They belonged to my grandfather. Could I have them back?" Crix's bioluminescent markings flickered with concern. He made a series of urgent clicking sounds. "Vital investigative equipment. Cannot solve cases without them. Help base personnel. Important work. Please, Sergeant Chen. Let us keep." The translator made his words sound formal, but Maya could hear the pleading tone in his actual voice. He looked up at her with those large, intelligent eyes. Maya sighed. "Okay, fine, but take good care of them." Crix's markings pulsed bright blue with happiness. He touched her hand gently with one three-fingered paw, careful of his claws. Commander Routh watched all of this with mixed feelings. He spoke to Maya one evening in the command center. "Sergeant Chen, the cubs respect you. They have changed since finding your eye coverings." "The sunglasses, sir?" "Yes, these sunglasses." The commander's translator struggled with the word, making it sound harsh. "In Vakari culture, young ones learn through challenge and competition. They hunt, they fight, they prove strength. But here my cubs learn through observation and deduction, through talking to others and solving small mysteries. This is not our way." Maya chose her words carefully. "Is it bad, sir?" "They seem happy. And they're really helping around the base." Commander Routh made a rumbling sound. "Not bad, just different. I wonder if they will struggle when they return home. If they will fit with other Vakari young. Maybe they'll teach the others something new," Maya suggested. The commander didn't respond, but his markings pulsed thoughtfully. Then came the serious case. Dr. Martinez, the head medical officer, stormed into the security office on the 6th day looking panicked. "We have a problem. A big problem. Critical medical supplies are missing from the infirmary. Antimicrobial agents, regeneration accelerators, pain suppressors. All the expensive, important stuff we need for the upcoming convoy escort mission." The security chief, a gruff human named Johnson, stood immediately. "When did you notice?" "Just now, during inventory. They should have been in the secure cabinet, but the whole section is empty. Someone took them." How many people have access? 12 personnel, all trusted medical or security staff. This was serious. The convoy escort mission was scheduled for 3 days from now. They'd be protecting supply transports through hostile territory, where pirates sometimes operated. If anyone got injured without proper medical supplies, it could be fatal. The detective cubs heard about the case within an hour. The base grapevine worked faster than official communication channels. Crix, wearing the sunglasses, approached Security Chief Johnson directly. "We investigate," the cub announced. "Find missing supplies. We help." Johnson looked at Commander Routh, who had accompanied the cubs. "Sir, this is a serious matter. Not a lost pen or a mysterious noise. We're talking about theft, possibly for black market sale. This could be dangerous." "My cubs are capable," Commander Routh said firmly. "They have proven useful. Let them help." "We will supervise." Johnson sighed but nodded. "Fine, but they report everything to me. And they don't confront anyone alone?" "Understood." The cubs chittered their agreement. Their investigation started immediately. Unlike their previous cases, this one had real stakes. The cubs seemed to understand. Their usual playfulness disappeared. They moved through the base with intense focus, all three of them working together. Crix interviewed medical staff. Thrax examined the infirmary, looking for signs of forced entry or tampered security systems. Venna reviewed access logs with the help of a human technician, learning to read the data despite her young age. Maya found herself drafted as their assistant. The cubs needed someone to reach high shelves, access certain computer systems, and translate complex human idioms that their implants struggled with. "You're their Watson," Dr. Williams joked. "I'm their what?" "Watson, the assistant to Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective from old Earth literature." Maya rolled her eyes but kept helping. She had to admit the cubs were thorough. They checked everything twice, asked questions that even the security team hadn't considered, and noticed small details that human eyes missed. On the second day of investigation, Thrax discovered something. A small fiber caught on the edge of the secure cabinet lock. It was synthetic, the kind used in standard issue base jackets. But it was also slightly discolored, stained with something. "Machine lubricant," the technician confirmed after testing. "The kind we use in the vehicle bay." That narrowed down the suspects. Not many medical staff spent time in the vehicle bay. The cubs cross-referenced access logs, interviewed more people, and slowly built a picture of what happened. Crix gathered the team in a quiet corner of the rec room. Himself, Thrax, Venna, Maya, Dr. Williams, and Security Chief Johnson. The young Vakari adjusted the sunglasses on his snout and made a series of clicks and gestures. Suspect identified. Supply Officer Davis works with medical inventory, also does maintenance checks on convoy vehicles, has access to both areas. Access logs show him in infirmary during hours when theft must have occurred. Financial records show unusual spending patterns, living beyond means. Johnson pulled up Davis's file on his datapad. "That's a serious accusation, little guy. You better be sure." "We are sure," Crix said through his translator. His bioluminescent markings pulsed with confidence. "Confront him. You will see." Security Chief Johnson looked at Commander Routh. The massive Vakari nodded once. "Very well," Johnson said. "Let's bring in Supply Officer Davis for questioning." The cubs had solved their biggest case yet, but Maya felt a knot of worry in her stomach. If Davis was guilty, and if he was desperate enough to steal critical medical supplies, this situation could get dangerous. She looked at the three cubs, their scales gleaming under the rec room lights. Crix wearing those sunglasses with such seriousness. They weren't just playing detective anymore. This Supply Officer Davis confessed within 30 minutes of questioning. The cubs had been right about everything. He'd been stealing medical supplies for months, selling them to smugglers who passed through the frontier territory. The money went to pay gambling debts he'd accumulated during off-duty hours on the base's entertainment network. Security recovered most of the stolen supplies from Davis's quarters, hidden in false-bottomed storage containers. The convoy mission could proceed safely. Davis was arrested and would face court-martial. The detective cubs became heroes overnight. Base personnel treated them like celebrities. They received gifts of food, special treats from Earth and other worlds, even small toys and puzzles. The cubs enjoyed the attention, but seemed more interested in continuing their investigative work. Then Ambassador Vicor arrived, and everything changed. The ambassador's ship landed 3 days after Davis's arrest. Vakor was ancient by Vakari standards. His scales faded to gray, his movements slower but no less dignified. He came from the Vakari homeworld, specifically to inspect the cultural exchange, program and evaluate the Cubs' development. Maya watched from the landing bay as Commander Rolth greeted the ambassador with formal ceremony. The two Vakari touched foreheads, a sign of respect among their people. Then Vakor's eyes fell on the Cubs and his bioluminescent markings flickered red. Crick stood at attention, wearing the aviator sunglasses. Thrax and Venna flanked him, trying to look professional. Vakor made a sound like grinding rocks. His translator implant rendered it as disapproval. What is meaning of this? Why do young ones wear alien face coverings? Why do they stand like human soldiers instead of hunting like proper Vakari cubs? Commander Rolth explained about the sunglasses, the detective work, and the solved cases. Vakor listened with increasing agitation. His markings pulsed darker red. This is corruption, the ambassador announced. The Cubs are being twisted away from Vakari culture. They mimic alien behaviors. They adopt alien tools. This is not acceptable. Over the next 2 days, Vakor conducted a formal review. He interviewed the Cubs, observed their behavior, and spoke with base personnel. His disapproval grew stronger with each passing hour. Maya tried to avoid the whole situation, but Dr. Williams pulled her into a meeting with the ambassador on the 3rd day. Commander Rolth was there too, looking uncomfortable. Sergeant Chen, Vakor said, his voice deep and rumbling even through the translator. You gave the Cubs these eye coverings. These sunglasses. I didn't give them anything, Ambassador. They found them. I let them keep the glasses because they seemed to enjoy them. Enjoy them? Yes. They enjoy pretending to be something they are not. They enjoy playing at being human detectives instead of learning proper Vakari ways. Maya felt her temper rising but kept her voice level. With respect, Ambassador, the Cubs haven't stopped being Vakari. They're using their natural abilities, their observation skills, their coordination, their pack-hunting instincts. The sunglasses just give them a framework to focus those abilities. A human framework, not a Vakari one, Dr. Williams spoke up. Ambassador, if I may, I've been studying the Cubs' behavior extensively. The changes we've seen aren't corruption, they're adaptation. The Cubs are learning to apply their natural skills in new contexts. This is exactly what cultural exchange should achieve. Vakor's markings pulsed angrily. Cultural exchange means learning about other species while remaining true to oneself, not adopting alien affectations and pretending to be something else. They're not pretending, Maya argued. They're growing. They're learning. They are Cubs, Vakor said firmly. They are too young to understand what they lose by abandoning their heritage. The ambassador delivered his verdict that evening. The entire base gathered in the main assembly hall. The Cubs stood at the front, confused and worried. Crick still wore the sunglasses, but his bioluminescent markings were dim with anxiety. After careful observation and consultation with Vakari leadership, Vakor announced, I have determined that the cultural exchange program, while well-intentioned, has had unintended negative effects on our young. The Cubs will return to traditional Vakari training immediately. The alien items they have adopted will be confiscated. They will relearn proper Vakari behavior before returning home. The assembly hall erupted in protest, human voices mixed with Vakari rumbles. The Cubs looked at each other in confusion and distress. Vakor raised one massive hand for silence. This is not punishment. This is correction. The Cubs must understand their own culture before they can properly learn from others. No, a small voice said. Everyone turned. Crix had spoken, his translator making the single word echo through the hall. No? Vakor repeated, his voice dangerous. You refuse an elder's instruction? Crix removed the sunglasses carefully and held them in his hands. He looked at them, then at Ambassador Vakor, then back at the glasses. The sunglasses did not change us, Crix said slowly, his translator struggling with his careful pronunciation. We are still Vakari. We still hunt. We still coordinate as pack. We still use our senses and our minds. But now we hunt different things. We hunt truth. We hunt justice. We hunt solutions to problems. This is not human behavior pretending. This is Vakari behavior with new purpose. Thrax and Venna moved to stand beside their brother. A unified pack. We do not wish to lose what we have learned, Thrax added. We do not wish to stop helping others, Venna finished. Vakor's markings flickered between red and blue, anger mixing with confusion. You are cubs. You do not decide. Maya stepped forward before she could stop herself. With respect, Ambassador, maybe they should get to decide. They're the ones living this experience. They're the ones learning and growing. Sergeant Chen, you overstep, Commander Ralph warned quietly. Maybe I do, sir. But these cubs have done nothing wrong. They've helped this base. They've solved real problems. They've made everyone here work together better. Humans and Vakari both. If that's not what cultural exchange is supposed to achieve, then what is? Vikor turned his massive head toward her. For a moment, Maya thought she'd gone too far. The ambassador could have her disciplined, could demand she be removed from the base, could create a diplomatic incident. Instead, he said, the sunglasses will be confiscated. The cubs will resume traditional training. That is my decision. The cubs looked at Maya with desperate eyes. Crix held out the sunglasses toward her like an offering, like a plea. Maya walked over and knelt down in front of the three cubs. She took the sunglasses from Crix's hands and looked at them. Her grandfather's sunglasses, a piece of home, a tool that had somehow bridged the gap between two species. Then she made a decision that might end her military career. No, she said quietly. The assembly hall went silent. Sergeant Chen, Commander Ralph said, warning clear in his voice. Maya stood up, holding the sunglasses. She looked directly at Ambassador Vikor. These are my property, mine to give or keep as I choose. I choose to give them permanently to Crix, Thrax, and Vena, as a gift, as a symbol of friendship between our species. You can confiscate military property, Ambassador, but you can't confiscate a personal gift given freely. Vikor's markings blazed red. You dare to defy my instructions? I dare to give my own property to someone I care about. That's not defiance. That's friendship. The cubs looked up at her with something like hope in their alien eyes. Dr. Williams spoke up. Ambassador, Sergeant Chen is correct. Those sunglasses are her personal property, not base equipment. She has every right to give them as a gift. Other voices joined in. Human soldiers, scientists, even some of the younger Vakari, personnel who had worked with the cubs. The cubs helped me find my missing data. They solved the mystery of the ventilation. Noises. They caught a thief who would have endangered all of us. They make the base better, Ambassador. Vikor looked around the assembly hall, his expression unreadable. His markings pulsed through different colors, red, blue, purple, green. His internal struggle was visible for everyone to see. Finally, he spoke. This is most irregular. Yes, sir, Maya agreed. Most irregular. The cubs refused to accept traditional correction. Base personnel defend their alien behaviors, and you openly defy my instructions while technically breaking no rules. That's about the size of it, sir. Vikor was quiet for a long moment. Then, incredibly, his markings pulsed with something that might have been amusement. Commander Ralph, the ambassador said, your cubs are learning more than I expected. They are learning to stand firm in their beliefs, to defend what they value, to work together against opposition. These are good Vakari traits. Commander Ralph's markings flickered with surprise. Ambassador? They are also learning stubbornness and defiance, which are less desirable traits. But perhaps, Vikor paused, considering. Perhaps there is more to examine here before making final judgments. The assembly hall held its collective breath. The cubs may keep the sunglasses, Vikor announced. For now, I will observe more carefully. I will see if they truly remain Vakari in spirit while adapting human methods. If I am satisfied, the cultural exchange program may continue. If not, my original decision stands. It wasn't perfect, but it... Ambassador Vikor spent the next week observing everything. He followed the cubs on their patrols, watched them solve minor cases, and studied how they interacted with both humans and Vakari. The tension on the base was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone knew the ambassador could still shut down the whole program. The cubs tried their best to show they hadn't lost their Vakari nature. They demonstrated their hunting skills during training exercises. They competed in traditional strength challenges. They spoke their own language and honored Vakari customs. But they also kept doing detective work, kept wearing the sunglasses, kept helping solve problems around the base. Maya tried to focus on her regular duties, but she couldn't stop worrying. She'd attached herself to those cubs without meaning to. The thought of them being sent away, of them losing something that made them happy, hurt more than she expected. On the 8th day of Vikor's observation, Something changed. The cubs were on their evening patrol with Venna wearing the sunglasses. They moved through the base's lower levels, checking corridors and saying hello to night shift workers. Maya had volunteered to accompany them, partly to supervise and partly because she enjoyed their company. Venna stopped suddenly near the engineering section. Her bioluminescent markings flickered rapidly, a sign of confusion or concern. "What's wrong?" Maya asked. Venna tilted her head, listening. "Sound wrong."
"Vibration wrong."
"Something not normal." Maya listened but heard only the usual hum of base machinery. "I don't hear anything unusual." "Vakari hearing different than human," Crix explained, coming to stand beside his sister. He and Thrax both froze, their heads tilted in the same direction. Venna is right. Something wrong with power systems. Frequency is off. They followed the sound to a maintenance panel. Thrax examined it carefully, sniffing at the seams. "Someone opened this recently. Smell of human sweat. Also smell of..." He paused, searching for words. "Burning electronics. Very faint." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She called Security Chief Johnson immediately. "Chief, the Cubs found something odd in engineering. Maintenance panel near Junction C7. Might be nothing, but they think something's wrong." Johnson arrived 10 minutes later with a technician. They opened the panel and found exactly what the Cubs had sensed. Someone had tampered with the power routing system. Several circuits had been bypassed and a small device had been installed that none of them recognized. "What is that?" Maya asked, pointing at the device. The technician's face went pale. "That's a delayed shutdown trigger. Someone's planning to cut power to specific sections of the base, but it's set on a timer. It hasn't activated yet." "Which sections?" Johnson demanded. The technician checked the routing. "Defensive systems. Communication arrays. Main security center. Everything we'd need if the base came under attack." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "When is it set to trigger?" Maya asked, though she dreaded the answer. 3 days from now, right when the supply convoy reaches the outer marker point." Johnson's expression darkened. "Someone's planning to hit us when the convoy arrives. They're going to disable our defenses and communications, then attack while we're vulnerable." He immediately called for base lockdown and emergency protocols. Commander Rolth arrived with Ambassador Vikor. The situation was explained quickly. "This is serious threat," Rolth said, his markings pulsing red with anger. "We must find who installed this device. Must find if there are others." The cub stepped forward. Crix adjusted the sunglasses on his snout. "We investigate. We find who did this. We find other devices if they exist." Vikor looked at the cubs, then at the sabotaged panel, then back at the cubs. "This is not game, young ones. This is danger. Real danger. We know," Crix said firmly. "That is why we must help." For a long moment, the ambassador studied the 3 cubs. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well. But you report everything. You take no risks. You work with security at all times." "Understood." The cubs chittered their agreement. The investigation began immediately. Unlike their previous cases, this one felt different from the start. There was no playfulness, no casual chittering. The cubs were deadly serious, their predator instincts fully engaged. They examined the device carefully, memorizing the scent of whoever had installed it. Vakari's sense of smell was far superior to human, able to detect individual chemical signatures that lingered for days. Thrax took the lead on scent tracking, his nostrils flaring as he followed the trail. The scent led them through the base, past dozens of other people and smells, but Thrax never lost the thread. He tracked it to the communications center, where they found another device hidden behind a maintenance hatch. "Same person," Thrax confirmed. "Same scent signature. Same sweat composition. Same equipment smell." Venna worked with the base's computer systems, learning to read access logs and security footage. Her young mind adapted quickly to the technology, finding patterns that human analysts had missed. Crix coordinated the investigation, interviewing personnel and cross-referencing information. He compiled a list of everyone who had access to both engineering and communications, who worked night shifts when fewer people were around, who had the technical knowledge to install sabotage devices. Maya worked as their liaison, translating complex human systems the cubs didn't understand, reaching high panels they couldn't access, and providing adult authority when needed. By the end of the first day, they had found 3 more devices, all set to trigger at the same time, all with the same scent signature. By the end of the second day, they had narrowed the suspects to 5 people, all communications specialists, all with the technical skills needed, all with opportunity. On the third day, the morning of the convoy's arrival, Venna made the breakthrough. She was reviewing security footage when she noticed something strange. One of the suspects, Communications Officer Park, appeared in multiple locations during a single shift without enough time to walk between them. She cross-referenced his access card logs with the timestamps on the security cameras. "He is using someone else's access card," Venna announced, her translator making her sound proud. "His own card shows him in quarters during tampering times, but security footage shows him in engineering and communications. He must have stolen an additional access card to hide movements." Security Chief Johnson pulled Park's file. "He's scheduled to work during the convoy arrival. He'd be at his post when the devices activate, which means he wouldn't be suspected," Maya realized. He'd be right there, able to claim he was trying to fix the problem. The Cubs worked with security to review every piece of evidence. The scent trail, the access logs, the security footage, the device designs. Everything pointed to Communications Officer Park, but they needed confirmation. They needed to catch him in the act. Crix devised a plan. They would watch Park during the convoy arrival. If he was innocent, he'd try to fix the problems when systems started failing. If he was guilty, he'd do something else, something that would give him away. Ambassador Vakor watched as the Cubs explained their plan. His expression was unreadable. "This is good tactical thinking," he said quietly to Commander Routh. "They use their pack-hunting instincts. One watches the prey, one blocks the escape route, one prepares to strike, but they apply it to investigation rather than physical hunting. They are still Vakari," Routh agreed. "Just Vakari with new skills." The convoy arrival time approached. The Cubs took their positions. Crix watched Park directly, pretending to be on routine patrol. Thrax monitored the escape routes from the communications center. Venna stayed near the command center, ready to alert security. Maya stayed with Venna, her heart pounding. This was real danger now. If Park was guilty and desperate, if he had weapons or accomplices, things could turn violent. The convoy appeared on long-range sensors. The base went to yellow alert, standard procedure. Everyone took their positions, then the devices activated. Power to defensive systems flickered and died. Communications arrays went offline. The security center's monitors went dark. Chaos erupted as technicians rushed to fix the problems. But the Cubs weren't watching the technicians. They were watching Park. The communications officer stood at his station, but he wasn't trying to fix anything. He was watching a small device in his hand, something that looked like a personal communicator but wasn't standard issue. He pressed a button, and a brief signal transmitted from the base. "He just sent message," Venna said urgently. "Not through base systems. Personal transmitter. He is signaling someone." Security Chief Johnson was beside her in seconds. Signal went to coordinates outside the base. "If he's calling in an attack force..." Crix moved fast. The young Vakari, still wearing the sunglasses, stepped directly in front of Park and looked up at him. "Communications Officer Park," Crix said loudly enough for everyone in the room to hear. "You are sabotaging base systems. You are signaling hostile forces. You are traitor." Park's face went white. He looked at the Cub, then at the transmitter in his hand, then at the security personnel moving toward him. For a moment, Maya thought he might surrender peacefully. Then Park ran. He bolted from the communications center, pushing past startled personnel. But he hadn't counted on the Cubs' coordination. Thrax was waiting at the first intersection, blocking the route to the hangar. Park changed direction, heading toward the service tunnels. Venna had predicted this. She'd positioned security teams at every tunnel. The base went to full combat alert. Technicians worked frantically to restore defensive systems and communications. Commander Routh coordinated defense positions. Security Chief Johnson interrogated Park, trying to determine the size and timing of the incoming attack. The Cubs stood in the command center, still wearing their detective sunglasses, but looking uncertain. This was beyond their experience. They had solved the mystery, but now came the real danger. Ambassador Vakor approached the 3 Cubs. His massive form cast shadows over them, but his markings pulsed gentle blue. "You have done well, young ones. Better than I expected. You have proven your value. Now you must go to the safe bunker with other non-combat personnel." "No." Crick said immediately. Vicor's markings flickered with surprise. No, we stay, we help. Our investigation notes contain information that security team needs. We know this base better than attackers. We know where weak points are, where defensive positions should be. We can help. You are cubs, Vicor said firmly. Your duty now is to survive, not fight. Thrax stepped forward. We are Vicari cubs. We do not hide while pack fights. This is not our way. Venna added, we are also detective cubs. We have information and skills that help. Must use them. Maya watched the exchange with her heart in her throat. Part of her wanted to grab the cubs and lock them in the safest place on the base. Another part of her recognized the fierce pride in their voices, the determination in their eyes. Commander Routh rumbled thoughtfully. Ambassador, perhaps there is middle ground. The cubs cannot fight. They are too young, too untrained for combat, but they can help coordinate defense. Their knowledge of the base is extensive after weeks of investigation. They have found security weaknesses we did not know existed. Vicor considered this. The base shook slightly as technicians brought defensive systems back online. Time was running out. Very well, the ambassador decided, but they stay in command center. They advise only, if fighting reaches this level, they evacuate immediately. Agreed? The cubs chittered their agreement. The attack came 40 minutes later. Long-range sensors detected 3 ships approaching fast. They were modified transports, the kind used by pirate groups and mercenary teams, not military grade but heavily armed for civilian vessels. They're betting our defenses will still be down, Johnson analyzed. Park's signal told them the sabotage was successful. They don't know we found the devices and fixed them. Good, Routh said. Let them come believing we are vulnerable. Then we show them truth. The ships entered weapons range. The lead vessel fired on the base's shield generators, expecting them to be offline. Instead, the shields activated at full strength, deflecting the attack easily. The attackers realized immediately that their plan had failed. They broke formation, trying to scatter and retreat. Base defenses opened fire, precise, controlled shots that disabled engines without destroying the ships entirely. The base didn't want to kill anyone if possible. They wanted prisoners, wanted information about who had funded this attack. 2 ships were disabled quickly. The third managed to land on the planet's surface about 5 kilometers from the base. Sensors showed approximately 20 armed individuals emerging from the crashed vessel, setting up defensive positions. They will try to attack on foot, Rolth predicted, hoping to use terrain for cover. The cubs studied the sensor data, their heads tilted in concentration. Crix traced a path on the map display with one claw. They will come through the canyon system here, he said, pointing. Only approach with good cover. We used this path during exploration exercises. Many places to hide, many elevation changes. Can we block the canyon? Johnson asked. Venna shook her head. Too wide, but there are 3 choke points where canyon narrows. If defenders position here, here, and here, attackers must pass through kill zones with no cover. Thrax added, also, canyon has excellent acoustics. Sound carries and echoes. If defenders make noise at these positions, attackers will think there are more defenders than really present. We'll make them cautious, slow their advance. The adults looked at the cubs' tactical analysis with growing respect. These weren't just clever observations. This was solid military strategy, the kind that came from natural hunting instincts combined with detailed knowledge of terrain. Deploy teams to those positions, Commander Routh ordered. Mixed human and Vicari squads. Use the terrain exactly as the cubs suggest. The defense was set. Teams moved into position. The base waited. The attack began an hour later. The hostile force moved through the canyon, using cover effectively, advancing in coordinated teams. They were professionals, likely former military. Exactly the kind of people who would sell their skills to the highest bidder. But they were walking into a trap designed by predator cubs who understood hunting grounds better than any tactical manual. The first choke point forced the attackers into a narrow passage. Defenders opened fire from elevated positions using stun weapons primarily. Several attackers went down. The rest retreated, trying to find another route. The second choke point caught them in a crossfire. The canyon's acoustics worked exactly as Thrax predicted. Defenders shouted and made noise, making 20 people sound like 50. The attackers hesitated, unsure of the actual numbers they faced. At the third choke point, the remaining attackers finally broke. They surrendered, throwing down weapons and calling out that they were done. The attack was over. The base had won without any casualties on either side. Even most of the attackers had survived, stunned but alive. In the command center, the Cubs watched the sensor displays as security teams rounded up the prisoners. Their bioluminescent markings pulsed with relief and pride. Ambassador Vakor stood behind them, observing silently. When the last prisoner was secured, he spoke. "Young ones, look at me." The 3 Cubs turned. Crick still wore the aviator sunglasses, though they sat slightly crooked on his snout after the stress of the day. "I came to this base believing you were being corrupted," Vakor said slowly. "Believing you were abandoning Vakari ways to mimic humans. I was wrong." The Cubs' markings flickered with surprise. "You are Vakari," the ambassador continued, "in every way that matters. You hunt, you coordinate as pack, you use your natural strengths, you think strategically, but you have learned to apply these strengths in new ways. You hunt truth instead of prey. You coordinate to solve problems instead of take down large animals. You think strategically about defense instead of attack." He knelt down, bringing his massive form closer to their level. "The sunglasses did not change you. They gave you a tool to express what you already were. This is what cultural exchange should be, not replacing one's nature but expanding the ways that nature can be expressed." "So we can stay?" Venna asked hopefully. "Can keep doing detective work?" Vakor's markings pulsed with warmth. "Yes, you can stay. The cultural exchange program will continue. And when you return home, you will teach other Cubs what you have learned. You will show them that Vakari can adapt without losing who we are." The Cubs chittered with joy and rushed forward to touch foreheads with the ambassador. A gesture of deep respect. Maya felt tears stinging her eyes. She tried to blink them away, but Dr. Williams noticed and smiled at her. "You did good, Sergeant," Williams said quietly. "They did it themselves," Maya replied. "I just gave them some sunglasses." The next day, the base held a ceremony in the main assembly hall. Commander Rolth stood at attention with his command staff. Ambassador Vakor represented the Vakari government. Security Chief Johnson stood beside the base commander. The 3 Cubs waited nervously at the front, cleaned and groomed. Trying to look presentable, Crix, Thrax, and Venna, the base commander announced, "In recognition of your service to this installation, your dedication to cross-species cooperation, and your exceptional work in preventing a hostile attack, you are hereby appointed as official junior security consultants for Outpost Kepler 442b. Johnson stepped forward with 3 small badges, each one designed to fit on a Vakari harness. The badges showed the insignia of both human and Vakari security forces, combined into a new symbol. The Cubs received their badges with solemn pride. Then Crix raised one hand. "Also need official equipment," he said seriously. Maya stepped forward, carrying a box. Inside were 3 pairs of aviator sunglasses, brand new but styled exactly like her grandfather's original pair. "Every detective needs their signature look," she said, handing one to each Cub. The 3 Cubs put on their sunglasses simultaneously. The assembly hall erupted in applause and cheering. Humans and Vakari both celebrated the strange, wonderful success of their tiniest security team. Over the following weeks, the Cubs continued their work. They solved more cases, trained with both human and Vakari security forces, and became a permanent fixture of base life. Other bases requested similar programs. The idea of junior security consultants spread throughout the frontier territories. Dr. Williams published her research paper, Tool-Mediated Behavioral Frameworks in Cross-Species Cultural Exchange, which became Requi.